Hi, and welcome to the Chatty Cuppa. This is episode 3, and we are going to be talking about life. Like all of our Chatty Cuppas, it's all about mindset hacks, and the whole purpose of this Chatty Cuppa is to give you the hacks to make your life easier. It's weird that with every guest that I interview or have on my show, I'm always continuously learning, and that's what I love most about it. Now, life is all about choices, the choice to live in freedom every single day. Now, I say choice because what we think, what we feel, and how we behave is actually a choice we make from the moment we get up right until the time we go to bed at night. Now, this morning when you got out of bed, what words and what language did you use on yourself? Were the words and language that you used on yourself, were they empowering, or were they constructive, or were they crumbling and destructive? So I want you to start to think about what we tell ourselves. Now, our mind works to move us from pain to pleasure. And many people in their lives, they just cannot connect the dots to even see what the bigger picture resembles. Now, today I have this wonderful, beautiful human being, beautiful on the inside and outside. We have Shehnaaz Latif. Hi, Shehnaaz.
Okay.
Shehnaaz was born and raised in the UK. Her husband and her got married in Oxford 17 years ago, so that's such a beautiful milestone. They have 2 beautiful kids, daughters, 13 and 17. And Shehnaaz has this passion to work with charities and individuals to make a difference. And from the moment I met Shehnaaz, I haven't seen her face to face, but we've met over Zoom in numerous networking events. And I could feel this connection with her. Now, she is a lead consultant in impact and evaluation for the National Council of Voluntary Organizations, and this is the membership body for the English charities. She is also a doTERRA well-being advocate, and she's passionate about natural solutions for healing and everyday well-being. Now, she volunteers in her faith community since she was a youth and currently serve on her health board. Now, I know I've seen some of the paintings. She loves to paint, she loves to practice yoga, and she loves to read and sing in the local choir. So maybe we can get her to sing for us. So welcome, Shehnaaz. Thank you for coming along and sharing your wisdom today on the Chatty Cuppa. I'm looking very forward to it, and I know that you have such a beautiful energy, and I know that that energy comes with a lot of learning of life's lessons. So let us start off by welcoming you, but also telling us a little bit about your background, your story, because we all have this wonderful story to share. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Nirasha. Very beautiful introduction from you. Thank you. And likewise, I think that lockdown has been very instructive. We've had to get to know people online very quickly. And as you say, just catch the vibe, catch the energy. And that's certainly what attracted me to you and to the conversations that we're about to have. So there's lots of ways to tell our stories, aren't there? But I suppose just focusing on the kind of theme that I wanted to explore today, I think I've thought about my story as a series of dots that are connected within me. They make sense to me. But the biggest challenge, I think, is to share, because we're not mind readers, is to share how those dots connect for you over time. So I can see things that were seed planted in my youth. So
give some examples. Give us some examples.
So for example, when I think about why I'm doing work with doTERRA and thinking about wellness, the appeal is the fact that nature has solutions. And I remember very early on when I went on a 2-week experiential camp with other peers, that we were taken into a nature walk, and we saw fungus growing, okay, as you do in nature, in the countryside. And it was making these kind of shapes. So the fungus was growing on top of each other. And as teenagers, we were just looking at our tutor and saying, what kind of a ridiculous walk is this? Why are we looking at these funguses? You know, it just looks, these fungi look horrendous. And then she took us back and we went and sat down and we watched a program about architecture. And one of the things that we saw was a beautiful dome. And guess what? It had been constructed like this.
Wow.
Okay. So connecting the dots for me is about recognizing that in this case, nature gives us signs and solutions to things. It's also such a beautiful thing that we like to try and then mimic that and make that into something that we can admire by our own hands, and look at these things inside our built environment that we would also see in the natural external environment. So I have vivid memories of things like that where I didn't realize at the time the connections, and now when I think about nature and its power and its place in my life, it's because of things like that, experiences like that.
Do you know, I totally resonate with what you've just said, because I always believe that there's so many gurus in nature. Now, for those people that don't understand what's a guru is actually a Sanskrit word for teacher. So there's so many different teachers in nature. And that was your turning point, how you could have seen how nature has this beautiful way of just connecting the dots so that we get to see this huge, beautiful picture that looks picture perfect. Now, do you think in life we also have this picture perfect, connect the dots, and life is all beautiful?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think that is the human condition, to really miss sometimes what is just the obvious. One of the things that I reflect back on is the kind of challenge of being a sensitive individual. So growing up, that was kind of more of a curse than a blessing, a bit of a burden, if you like. Sensitivity was a thing to not necessarily put me in good stead, because it just meant that I was overly emotional and things really got to me and I carried a lot. And I realized that over time, actually, that burden was actually a blessing. But at the time, it felt like something that was kind of disabling me from participating in
And when
life.
did you actually realize this? When did you realize that, you know what, my sensitivity, I'm not going to be using it like an Achilles heel, but rather I'm going to be using it and I'm going to get rid of that stigma of my sensitivity, you know, constantly being in my path of success. So when did you have this shift in thinking?
It's interesting from a physical perspective, that sensitivity manifested on my skin. So I suffered with eczema from birth, right? So that came out physically and it disappeared. I don't actually know how, and not exactly when, but it disappeared in my mid-20s, I think. And I think physically when that disappeared, it was almost a sign or a symbol that the work on the inside had been done. Now, of course, that's physiological as well. So nutrition will have taken a place as well. But I think I had probably learned a bit more how to listen to the emotions and respond to them. Yes. And respond to them. Yeah.
It's weird that so many people, I have my clients coming to me with skin issues from eczema to psoriasis, to warts and to other different types of skin issues. And they find it really hard to understand how your emotions can affect the way your body feels.
Yeah.
And the skin is one of the largest organs in our body. And when we have turmoil inside and we're going through some emotional trauma that's happening within us, where does it surface? On the skin. And I was trying to explain to my client the other day that you rather have it being expressed on your skin than one of the other internal organs that can be affected in a more severe detrimental way. Now, what are some of the biggest challenges that you had to face in your life, and how did you overcome these?
Yes. So I think that those physical challenges of whatever was manifesting on the skin was one of them, because it meant growing up that I wouldn't, for example, I wouldn't wear short-sleeved shirts or t-shirts or dresses or anything like that. And it meant also the fact that I was feeling that I was quite sensitive, that I would keep those emotions to myself. And I remember we would call it journaling now, but it was really just writing in a diary, and I would write my poems, and I'd write my frustrations down, and I'd communicate to really myself or the universe or both through that. And now it's interesting to see how that is one of the biggest things that we are recommended to do in times of turmoil nowadays, is to write things down, let that inner voice have an outlet, and be ready to listen and really hear it. So that feels like a bit of a theme for my life. Whenever the challenges are manifesting, I know that I need to press pause. That might be 3 minutes of deep breathing, or it might be 30 minutes of a walk, or it might be an hour of reading, but it's something that I have to pay attention to and not put away.
And it's like you don't shelve it. You have to look at the problem, look at the way the feeling is behind the problem. Yes. Because the more we shelve it, the heavier the shelf gets.
Absolutely.
And then it just comes tumbling down.
Yeah.
Give me another example of a challenge that you've experienced. I love the journaling because I tell my clients to have a golden book. I call it a golden book, but they need to have a golden book to have only positive things in. But I tell them to take post-its and make sticky notes their best friend. Keep it in their bags, keep it wherever. And they need to write negative feelings, negative emotions, things that are like that chattiness inside you on a post-it, squash it up and bin it. Yes. By just the act of squashing or shredding, it helps them to get rid of, it makes them feel as if they removed it from within, and now it's in the bin. So, because it's really nice to see great feelings written down in paper and being able to go through it again. But the negative ones are, we like to bin it.
Yes.
Give me another example of a challenge.
Exactly. Yes. Now, this is one that I'm sure lots of people can relate to, and it's parenting, becoming a mum. I think, yes. And I think for me, I mean, I could talk about this for ages, but I won't. The thing that is uppermost in my mind is the fact that you don't get to practice being a parent. You just have to do it when you make the decision that you would like to be blessed with children, and if that comes to pass, then you are a parent. You also don't get to press pause on parenting while you go and do your self-development, right? So the challenge has been to continue the process of self-development with a commitment to parenthood. And I use that really specifically because parenting sounds like a job, whereas parenthood is a state of being.
Absolutely.
Right.
I love that.
And so carrying that, of course, it's a responsibility. With that responsibility is an absolute commitment and ever increasing joy that you get to see the world in a different way, from a different perspective. And every day to kind of follow my children around and sort of say, I whisper to myself, like, what are you going to teach me today? What are you going to teach me today? And
Oh, and when they get to when they become teenagers, their
yes,
lessons can be very, very, go straight to the heart.
absolutely. But I am loving, I mean, actually it says my youngest is 7, and the oldest is 13. So now the 7-year-old, of course, thinks that she's 13.
Oh, yes.
And the 13-year-old is, getting ready to think about leaving home, even though that's a little way away. So it's really interesting to see the world, not just from their perspective, but to try and step into the shoes. Now it's even beyond empathy, because I'm not trying to empathize with my children. I am trying to understand what their contribution is and how I can help them to make whatever contribution it is. So I wanted to do it in this way because I know that expectations, when we have them of each other and when we put them on others, there is only one way that can go, and that is disappointment. So I have few expectations of my children, apart from, can you please make your bed and brush your teeth and so on. But in terms of what their life's journey is and what their soul is calling them to do, their spirit is guiding them to do, I'm watching that unfurl, and it's joyous. It really is. But it's challenging because I also have my own preconceived ideas, I guess, of what it means to be a parent or a mother, and I'm learning about that, like you, trying to be open every day and take a beginner's mindset. We're talking about mindset. The beginner's mindset for parenting is a concept that I'm learning a lot about, because that just frees me up to make mistakes.
But I love it when you talk about disappointment and expectations, because I always believe that when you don't expect things from people, you are less likely to be disappointed, just like exactly what you said. And as parents, we never received a manual. It's all about trial and error. What might work for me might not work for you, because it also stems from your own childhood and your own belief system and the way you were parented. And I love it because I see every generation taking parenting to another level. At the moment, we have a little baby. My niece has a 3-year-old, and he's in our lives all the time, every day. And I see some of the things that she's doing with her son that I wish I did it with my kids. And I look at them and I see parenting being evolved, which I love. Now, parenting is a huge struggle for many, many people. And I think when young people become parents, they now have to share each other with an extra being. And this extra being, you cannot just return it to take it back to the shop or whatever. We have to live with it, and we have to teach that being your rules, your life, and what their lives could be like. Give them glimpses of what their bigger picture could be. Now, in your life, when you say we have to join the dots, what were some of the ways? And I know you're a painter and you love painting and you make the most beautiful art. So how do you join your dots in your life?
So it's interesting, the analogy that you're making with the painting, because the painting is actually not dots at all. It's a flow. And when I was reflecting again on the question about joining the dots, because I put that forward as the way that I've been thinking about it, for me, they appeared as disconnected pieces of the universe, stars in the sky that kind of one's over there, one's over there. But actually, when I retraced where a dot had manifest and where it's now again resurfaced, what I see actually is a flow. And so now I'm moving from mindset to kind of mind flow and thinking about that. And the painting has come in this lockdown time as a reminder that if you just let go, and the person who's been teaching me has said, don't give your brain a chance to blow it, just go with the flow, right?
Go with the flow,
Go
because
with the
everything
flow.
else in life stops you from
It's
being your
you.
best.
Exactly. And I've been there on a blank canvas with the paintbrush, and she's just said, just put it on, just go with it. And if you don't like what happens, we'll find a way to correct it, but just get on. And so some of the things that have connected for me are, of course, in the parenting space. This is how things were. When I think about how I went through my school years and what I felt about my teachers and what did it mean to get 6 out of 20 or 16 out of 20. And then that's brought up what it has for me, but I've said, but my children are different. And I'm going to ask them what it means to them, what's the 6 out of 20 or the 16 out of 20. I'm not going to be the judge of that. I'm going to ask them to judge
And
themselves.
they're going to come up with their own flow and their own picture. And does your husband also share the same way of thinking? And
yeah, so of course we have, if I may digress for a little minute, I met my husband first at university. And then we did university, we were friends, we would hang out, all of that. We went our separate ways. We came back, we were reconnected years later by a mutual friend. And it is so interesting to me that when I surrendered to the universe, because I thought I knew who I was going to be with, that wasn't the plan. This man came forward from my past to say, I'm your partner, by the way, just hello.
I'm your soulmate, just putting it out there.
Yeah. And I do believe that our souls are mated with many, because we are all connected ultimately, but that there is one of those soulmates who truly would like to adventure with you come hell or high water. So yes,
and you all are in this training program together. There's one person that chooses to join you on your training program, and you find each other. While finding each other, you find yourself.
Yes, and absolutely. So he has read many different things to me, thought in a way that I have yet to experience, and vice versa. So I feel it's complementary. I don't feel like it's not a Jerry Maguire situation. We're not, nobody's completing anyone. We're complete beings. We're responsible for our own happiness and our own well-being. And we have made a commitment to it. So I see how he is with the children. I see how he is with me and with himself. And it's an everyday joy to behold that. And of course, there are then times when I just don't get it and I do things so differently. But that is my journey. This is his, and we've committed to be on, to travel together, which is lovely.
Choose to be able to travel with somebody is, although it seems like a choice, but it is also faith and your destiny. And I know in Hindi they call it naseeb. Yes. It's your naseeb, whatever is set for you. But in that same way, the way the world, the way the universe, some people think that the universe actually have this big picture and this destination for you, and many people would stick to that. But I'm slightly different. I actually think that we make our own destination point. We all may be born and we know what the end is, but the in-between dots, as such, we make it. And I totally believe that I am in control of my destiny. And the reason for that is I do believe in the higher consciousness, but also I believe that the higher consciousness is constantly flowing through me.
Yeah.
And because it's flowing through me, that energy is flowing through me, that I have this beautiful power, this beautiful divine power to create my own destinies. And when I'm taking control over it, then I'm going to work pretty damn hard in making sure that it materializes. And
Yeah.
obviously tapping into the higher consciousness.
Yes.
Yes. When you started to see your life's picture becoming clearer and clearer and clearer and seeing that flow, what were some of the biggest reasons for doing this? Seeing that flow. What was the biggest results of things that you put in place to see this?
Yeah. Yes. I think the realization that it's a dynamic and a dialogue, whether you think of the universe or God, Allah, whoever, whatever, if you really see your own agency, but also you have the humility to be guided, and to listen out and to see the signs, then that's, for me, that's part of the understanding of the flow. To say that I have some agency, absolutely, but I also am part of the, as we've said, the bigger picture. So to be open to that has been very liberating, and has allowed me to not relinquish control and be irresponsible, but to kind of relax a little bit, to say, you know what, there is a dialogue that I can have, and sometimes things will just happen and I don't need to kind of fix on being controlling. The other thing that came really clear is the absolute need to stay true to who I am and my self-care, and not to see that as being selfish, but to see it as self-care. And then that sensitivity piece came back again, which is to say, I actually have within me, I've been given a sensitive soul to nurture, and I can't apologize for that. It just is that way. So I have to hear the emotions and the messages that are coming up, and look after them and really spend time listening. I just can't go on autopilot and keep going and keep going and keep going. And I know that we talk about the inner critic a lot, and we say, you know, put that critic away. I've befriended my critic, and now we're critical friends, right?
That's such a gorgeous way to actually look into it. I'm going to go back a little, just rewind a bit to what you said about putting yourself first and being true to yourself. You know, Shakespeare was one of my, you know, some people hate Shakespeare and the poetry behind it. I loved it. I loved my English lessons because I had an awesome teacher and he did a brilliant job with Shakespeare. So I love it. And I've got a magnet here up on my magnet board here in the kitchen, and it says, know thyself and be true to thine. And for me, that is actually everything about what life should be. And first and foremost, before you even join forces with your parents when you were born, when you came out of your mom's womb, you were a soul. You were a distinct soul. You already had a personality. You already started to develop features. And when you came out, you were born perfectly. And somehow or the other, we do pick up and we do lose track of who we really are. And we move further and further and further and further away from our true self. And that is when the dots become so unclear. You cannot see what the bigger picture is. That's when life's problems get thrown at you and you don't know what to do. Now, I always ask people that I work with one simple question, in fact, two. The first one is, who is the most important person in your life? And you know what the answer is there?
Me.
Yes, I'm so glad you said it. But when I ask people this question, it is their spouses, their partners, their children. Children come top on
Yes.
the top of that. Their parents, their pets, and so on. But I always describe to them that this is your life, it's your spiral. And if you do not put yourself first and you do not think of yourself as the important piece in this puzzle of life, then it's very hard to put anybody else first. You know, then you're not giving anybody else true love and true time if you can't do it for yourself. And being authentic and remembering this is so, so imperative in finding yourself and actually making a mark on this earth. And when you realize your true self, then you also realize that you are such an embodiment of love. You know, love constantly flows from you to everything else. But just like how we have this fountain of love within us, we can also tap into it. There's so many people find it so hard to give themselves self-love. How do you instill this with your girls?
Yes. So I find love a very rich concept, and one that has, I think, some overuse and also for the love of the English language. Like you, I've grown up in a school system that has a lot of kind of English literature. But you know, when we talk about our home languages, there are many different words that are used to connect to the word in English that is love. So whether it's ishq, mohabbat, pyar, you know, these are all words for love, and they're all different types of love, I think. So when I think about my own self-care and that fountain within, it is again about the flow. It is again about the energy that is contained within me that needs equal attention. So I still find it hard to say I'm the most important. What I prefer to say is that my needs are as important as everybody else's. So we're all 100% important in that sense, right? Whether I come first or second and all of that is another matter, but my needs need attending, as do all of the other people in my family. So with the girls, one of the ways that I try and think about them nurturing themselves is that point I made earlier about having their own criteria of judgment for themselves. So like you were saying, we're born with an innate sense of good, and we know the difference between the true and the false. Children know what it means to them when they perform well or not by their own standards. They have a sense of when they were not responsible, or they were lazy, or they didn't put in the effort. They know that. And my girls will say to me, "Oh, Mum, but I didn't do really well." And I'll say, "Oh, well, why is that?" And it will be, "Oh, well, I actually didn't read the thing I was supposed to, or I didn't practice the thing I was supposed to." And I'll say, "Well, so what should we do next time?" "Well, I might just practice next time." So I'm not going to be the judge. I'm not going to say, "Well, I'm disappointed that you didn't get that," or whatever. I want them to know what is right and true and good in themselves, and I will help them by holding up the mirror. That's it.
That's a beautiful analogy, and I think many parents many parents are very quick in picking, in searching for the problem, throwing in the solution, and expecting their kids to just take whatever you say on board. And that's when breakdown happens. So that's beautiful. Your girls are really lucky to have you as a mom. And you've got two best friends for life. Now, I'm just coming to the end of this, and what are your best tips, 2 or 3 tips that you could share with all of us? Those don't you dare miss tips.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think the first one I would say is remember the gifts you've been given. And I think about that not just for the innate gift, but for those who have gifted me along the way. So from the woman that took me randomly on a nature trail to the person and people who are coaching me now, whether formally or informally, and all the things I've talked about with regard to parenting is because I've been part of a program that's been happening within the community, where we've been looking at what it means to be on the parenting journey. And so the gifts that I'm sharing now are as a result of those with whom I've traveled and who've shared their stories and their gifts. So I'd say remember those who have given gifts, and sometimes those gifts need to be reciprocated, sometimes they just need to be accepted and absorbed and used well. I think for me, the second tip is one that I try and use on myself all the time, is to just remember to connect. Connect and listen and really hear what's being said to you, within you, around you, and really hear. It's hard because we have this exterior. We can't always get into the energy, but if you can put aside what you can see and really engage in what's going on here, I think that we will understand each other better, we will communicate better, and that means that we will strengthen the universe around us, and the dialogue will be much richer and so much more joyful. So those would be, I think, my two things: make the most of the gifts and stay connected.
And those are two beautiful, beautiful ways of actually putting things. And for us in life to actually connect to ourselves, to actually connect with the outside world, we first need to have that connection within. Now, our mind doesn't care, our mind does not care what you say, whether what you say is good or bad, unhealthy or healthy, right or wrong, true or false. Our mind simply acts on the words, what you use on yourself. So the simple act of the words is so, so important in us making sure that the gifts that we are gifted is accepted, for us to make sure that we believe in ourselves, for us to be able to teach our kids to how not to judge and how to be gentle on themselves. So everything is about words that we use, and words are energies. I was listening to the song yesterday while playing a game with my kids, and it's an 80s song, I think. You might know it, and it goes like this. I'm going to change a few things, and it says, words don't come easy to me. How can I find a way to make me see I love me? Words don't come easy.
Beautiful.
Now, sorry about the voice. To be honest, we don't know the words that we need to use in ourselves to tell ourselves how much we love ourselves. Because if we can start to find those words and use those words to make our picture the brightest and the boldest and the greatest and the best version, then life becomes so meaningful. And sometimes we can have all the skills in our business. We can have all the we can have great people around us and not even acknowledge them, because the words we tell ourselves, we distort the pictures. And we just cannot connect the dots to make our lives as beautiful and complete. So I want to say thank you so much, Shehnaaz, for coming and sharing your beautiful wisdom with us. And there was so many gems in there.
Thank you.
Please tell us, where can we connect with you, and how can we get those lovely essential oils from you? Because I know I bought a few and I'm using it and I'm feeling great. So give us some contact details.
Absolutely. Yes, so I have a Wellness Zone Facebook page. So it's this is my Wellness Zone. I'm connecting with lots of people who are in the business of wellness, and we are also offering sensory travel experiences as well. So you can use your oils, be guided on a holiday from the comfort of your own home in your imagination, for which there are no travel restrictions. And so I'd be really happy to just put those details in the chat. Of
Brilliant.
course, I also have my job with the National Council for Voluntary Organisations. I do that 4 days a week, and I have a LinkedIn profile with that in mind. So as for many of us, there are multiple passions going on at the same time. And so the doTERRA work for me is all about making sure that natural solutions on a regular basis are being used for work, rest and play.
Beautiful, well put. Thank you so much. And you can always catch Shehnaaz on her social media. And like I always said, that when we know simple tricks to hack our minds can be so much more in tune with our inside world and the outside world. And the Chatty Cup is all about inspiring and rewiring so we ignite that inner fire in us. And I think we've just did that. Thank you so much. Lots of love, everybody. Until the next episode, keep smiling.